Right now, the UK is at breaking point. Families can't afford the basics, hospitals are overwhelmed, and political trust is collapsing, yet much of this isn't being talked about honestly. What if I told you there are 10 hidden crises quietly shaping your future, and missing even one of them could leave you unprepared? From the price of your weekly shop to the safety of your neighborhood, these issues touch every part of life. Stay with me until the end, because the last reason might be the one that affects you most right now. Number 1. Economic instability. The UK economy is facing one of its most challenging moments in decades. Inflation continues to eat away at household budgets, leaving families struggling to keep up with whizzing prices on everything from groceries to petrol. While official reports claim recovery is underway, the reality on the ground tells a different story. People are experiencing the highest cost of living squeeze in recent memory, with essentials becoming harder to afford. Imagine walking into a supermarket where your usual shopping basket costs 20 to 30% more than last year. This is no longer an exception, but the new normal. What makes this crisis even more severe is the issue of stagnant wages. Paychecks are failing to match the rapid rise in expenses, creating a widening gap between income and spending. For many households, this means making painful choices between heating their homes, paying rent, or putting food on the table. Energy bills alone have soared to historic levels, leaving millions worried about the upcoming winter. This creates a cycle where even those working full-time jobs feel like they are falling behind, unable to escape the pressure of relentless financial strain. The long-term effect of this economic instability is a growing sense of uncertainty and fear about the future. Small businesses are closing their doors because of rising overhead costs, while larger corporations pass expenses directly onto consumers. Everyday citizens are taking on more debt, relying on credit cards or loans just to survive. This is not sustainable, and it creates an environment where the gap between the wealthy and the struggling majority widens further. The UK's financial foundation is under real threat, not only because of global pressures, but also due to domestic policies that fail to address the everyday challenges people face. This silent storm of economic hardship is one of the clearest signs that the UK truly is at breaking point. Number 2. Housing crisis. The housing crisis in the UK has reached a level that many experts describe as unsustainable. House prices have skyrocketed over the past 2 decades, leaving first-time buyers locked out of the market. Even when people manage to save, sudden changes in mortgage rates make owning a home feel like a moving target. For younger generations, the dream of home ownership is slipping further away, replaced by the reality of renting for life. This creates a sense of frustration and hopelessness, as many ask, how can I ever afford a place to call my own? That very question captures the gravity of the current situation. For renters, the problem is equally devastating. Rents are climbing at the fastest pace in years, especially in major cities like London and Manchester, where competition for properties is fierce. Tenants often face bidding wars, forced to pay above the asking price just to secure a modest flat. At the same time, landlords are raising rents to cover their own rising costs, pushing working families to the edge of affordability. In some areas, rent consumes more than half of a household's monthly income. This isn't just inconvenient, it's destabilizing entire communities, leaving many families on the brink of homelessness. The wider impact of the housing crisis stretches far beyond individual households. Local councils are overwhelmed by the demand for social housing, with waiting lists stretching into years. Families find themselves forced to move frequently, uprooting children from schools and disrupting social ties. The shortage of affordable housing has created a ripple effect, impacting mental health, education outcomes, and even workforce stability. When people cannot live near where they work, commuting times grow longer, productivity falls, and communities become fractured. The housing crisis isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about the very fabric of society. With millions struggling to find a safe and affordable place to live, this crisis stands as one of the most visible signs that the UK is at a true breaking point. Number 3. NHS under pressure. The NHS, once considered the pride of the UK, is now under a level of strain that feels almost unbearable. Hospitals are overwhelmed with patients, and staff shortages are leaving frontline workers exhausted and demoralized. Long waiting times have become the new normal, with some people forced to wait over a year for essential treatments. This isn't just about minor inconveniences, it's about people living in pain, conditions worsening, and lives put at risk simply because the system can't cope. The NHS was built on the promise of free healthcare at the point of need, but many are now asking if that promise can still be kept. One of the biggest challenges comes from the shortage of doctors and nurses. Healthcare workers are leaving the profession due to burnout, low pay, and overwhelming stress, creating a cycle where those who remain face even greater pressure. Emergency departments are overflowing, ambulances queue outside hospitals, and routine surgeries are delayed for months. Imagine needing an urgent operation and being told there is no date available. This sense of helplessness is growing, and for many families, the NHS is no longer the safety net it once was. Strikes by healthcare staff only highlight the depth of frustration within the system. The wider consequences of an overstretched NHS ripple through society. Mental health services are underfunded, leaving countless people without access to proper support. GP appointments are harder to secure, pushing more people into crowded emergency rooms. Meanwhile, the population is aging, creating even greater demand for healthcare services in the years ahead. The NHS is not collapsing overnight, but it is slowly eroding under immense pressure. If left unresolved, the UK risks losing one of its most cherished institutions. This healthcare crisis is not just a policy debate, it's a matter of national identity and survival. When people begin to lose faith in the NHS, it signals that the UK is facing yet another critical sign of being at breaking point. Number 4. Immigration and border pressures. The topic of immigration is one of the most heated and polarizing issues in the UK today. Each year, the number of migrants arriving increases, whether through legal routes or across the English Channel in small boats. These arrivals place intense pressure on already overstretched services, from housing to healthcare. While immigration has long been part of the UK's identity, the sheer scale of today's movement is straining the system. Towns and cities are struggling to accommodate new arrivals, and this has sparked debates about fairness, resources, and national priorities that rarely make it into honest political discussion. The issue isn't simply about numbers, it's about infrastructure. Local councils are often unprepared for sudden surges in population, leaving temporary accommodations like hotels filled to capacity. Schools are stretched, trying to integrate children who may not speak English fluently, while healthcare services are overwhelmed by a growing demand they cannot meet. Communities that once felt stable are now facing rapid, often unplanned changes, leading to tension between long-time residents and newcomers. Many people worry about whether the system is sustainable, especially when other crises like housing shortages and NHS delays are already critical. At the same time, it's important to note that migrants contribute significantly to the UK workforce, particularly in essential sectors like healthcare, hospitality, and construction. The real challenge lies in the lack of planning and effective border control policies that balance need with capacity. Without clear solutions, the UK faces rising division, with immigration becoming a flashpoint for political battle. This growing pressure creates resentment among citizens who feel ignored, while newcomers face hostility for circumstances beyond their control. The result is a nation increasingly polarized, with trust in government and social cohesion eroding. Immigration itself isn't the sole problem, it's the failure to manage it responsibly that turns it into a crisis. This mounting strain on borders and communities is yet another undeniable sign that the UK is edging closer to a true breaking point. Number 5. Energy and power struggles. The UK energy system has become one of the most pressing concerns for both households and industries. Rising global fuel prices, combined with the nation's heavy dependence on imports, have created a perfect storm. Families across the country are opening bills that have doubled or even tripled compared to previous years. For many, the simple act of heating their homes has turned into a luxury rather than a basic necessity. The phrase fuel poverty has entered mainstream conversations, highlighting the grim reality that millions are choosing between staying warm or putting food on the table. This crisis isn't just about affordability, it's about security. The UK's reliance on foreign energy sources leaves it vulnerable to international conflicts, trade disputes, and supply chain disruptions. When geopolitical tensions rise, ordinary citizens feel the shockwaves in their bank accounts almost instantly. Meanwhile, renewable energy initiatives, while promising, are not yet capable of meeting the full demand. Wind and solar contribute significantly, but gaps remain, especially during cold winters, when consumption spikes. This fragile balance raises genuine fears of blackouts or rationing, a scenario that feels uncomfortably close for many households. Industries are also bearing the brunt of high energy costs, which threaten the survival of manufacturers and small businesses already struggling with inflation. When companies can't afford to keep production running, jobs are lost, and the economy takes another hit. Investment in nuclear energy and sustainable infrastructure has been slow, leaving the UK playing catch-up at a time when urgency is critical. Without long-term planning, the country risks being stuck in a cycle of rising bills, unstable supply, and growing public anger. The energy struggle is more than a temporary spike in prices, it represents a structural weakness that could destabilize both the economy and society. As households, businesses, and communities feel the squeeze, it becomes clearer that the nation is approaching another undeniable breaking point. Number 6. Political division. The UK is experiencing an era of profound political division, where trust in leadership has fallen to historic lows. After Brexit, the nation became sharply split, and those divisions have not healed. Instead, they've deepened, colouring debates on everything from immigration to the economy. Citizens feel disillusioned as governments change hands frequently, with prime ministers resigning or being ousted at a pace that undermines stability. For many people, politics no longer feels like a system that represents the men, rather a constant battle of agendas. This erosion of trust is leaving millions questioning who, if anyone, can steer the country forward. One of the most visible effects of this division is the lack of policy continuity. Each new leader promises reform, yet many initiatives collapse before they take root. Businesses hesitate to invest because they cannot predict what regulations or trade agreements will exist even a few years from now. Meanwhile, citizens are bombarded with contradictory narratives where facts are spun differently depending on which side delivers them. This confusion feeds into growing frustration as the public feels caught in a cycle of empty promises and political theatre rather than meaningful progress. The phrase politics as usual has become synonymous with disappointment. Beyond Westminster, political division is tearing at the social fabric. Conversations among friends, colleagues, and families often end in bitter arguments over party loyalty, cultural identity, or economic policy. Polarization is no longer confined to Parliament, it is embedded in everyday life. This makes compromise increasingly difficult as people retreat into echo chambers both online and offline. A society that cannot agree on its direction cannot move forward, and this paralysis leaves urgent issues like healthcare, housing, and energy unresolved. Political division isn't just an inconvenience, it's a threat to governance itself. When citizens lose faith in their leaders, and leaders cannot unite the nation, the entire system begins to crack. This widening divide is a powerful indicator that the UK is again reaching a critical breaking point. Number 7. Crime and safety concerns. Across the UK, crime rates are becoming a growing source of anxiety for ordinary citizens. Reports of violent assaults, knife attacks, and organized crime make regular headlines, painting a picture of communities that feel less safe than ever. Police forces, already stretched thin, struggle to respond quickly due to limited resources and staff shortages. For many residents, the simple act of walking home at night has become a cause for concern. This rise in criminal activity is not confined to large cities. Smaller towns and rural areas are also experiencing a troubling surge. Safety, once taken for granted, is now under threat. One key issue driving this crisis is the lack of policing capacity. With fewer officers on the streets and budget cuts undermining critical services, criminals often act with a sense of impunity. Victims sometimes report waiting hours or even days for police to arrive after serious incidents. Communities lose trust in law enforcement when justice feels delayed or absent. At the same time, antisocial behavior among young people, often linked to poverty and lack of opportunity, contributes to rising tensions. When individuals see gangs or drug activity unchecked, it erodes public confidence and fosters fear. The broader consequences of this safety crisis ripple into every corner of society. Businesses close earlier, nightlife declines, and neighborhoods become divided as residents retreat indoors. Families worry about their children's exposure to violence, while schools struggle to keep young people away from criminal influences. Social cohesion weakens when people feel unsafe in their own streets, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and isolation. A nation that cannot guarantee basic safety for its citizens loses one of the foundations of stability. Without urgent investment in policing, community support, and youth opportunities, the UK risks allowing crime to spiral further. Rising insecurity is more than statistics. It's lived reality for millions, and it represents yet another undeniable sign that the UK is approaching a dangerous breaking point. Number 8. Education in crisis. The UK's education system is facing pressures that threaten the future of an entire generation. Schools are struggling with funding shortages, teacher strikes, and crumbling infrastructure. Class sizes are growing, leaving fewer opportunities for one-on-one attention. While resources such as textbooks, technology, and extracurricular programs are being cut, parents and students alike feel the impact. Children are going to school in buildings that sometimes lack proper heating, ventilation, or even safe maintenance. This environment makes it difficult for young people to thrive academically or personally, creating long-term consequences for society as a whole. Teachers, the backbone of the system, are leaving the profession in record numbers. Low pay, excessive workloads, and lack of support have pushed many into burnout. Those who remain often face overwhelming stress as they try to do more with less. Recruitment efforts struggle to keep pace with resignations, leaving vacancies unfilled and classrooms understaffed. Students are the ones who suffer most, with disrupted learning, reduced course options, and cancelled lessons. When children miss out on consistent education, their confidence and performance suffer, and the cycle of disadvantage deepens. A strong education system should inspire hope, but many now see it as a source of frustration. The wider implications are severe. When education standards decline, the workforce of tomorrow becomes less competitive on the global stage. Employers already report skill shortages, while students fall behind international peers in literacy, maths, and science. Families, who can afford private tuition, create an even deeper divide between rich and poor, widening inequality across the country. Communities lose out when young people feel unsupported, leading to disengagement and in some cases vulnerability to crime or unemployment. Education is more than a pathway to jobs, it shapes values, confidence, and opportunity. A society that neglects its schools risks undermining its own future. The ongoing education crisis is not an isolated issue, it's a structural problem that reveals how unprepared the UK is for the challenges ahead. Number 9. Remote work opportunities. The rise of remote work has transformed how families think about where they live, and for many in the UK, it has opened the door to possibilities far beyond their local postcodes. Before the pandemic, most parents were tied to offices and long commutes. But today, countless jobs in fields like technology, finance, and creative industries can be performed from anywhere with a strong internet connection. This shift has sparked a realization: if work can be done from home, then home can be almost anywhere in the world. Families are seizing this freedom, using it as a chance to design lives that better align with their goals. Countries around the world are adapting quickly, creating policies that make relocation even more attractive. Nations such as Portugal, Estonia, and Costa Rica have introduced digital nomad visas that allow families to live abroad while continuing their UK-based or global employment. This flexibility means parents no longer have to choose between career and lifestyle. They can keep their jobs while enjoying lower costs of living, better climates, and safer communities. The idea of working from a terrace overlooking the sea, while children attend international schools nearby, feels like a dream come true for many families currently confined by Britain's challenges. The emotional impact of remote work opportunities is profound. For families, it represents a sense of control and independence previously out of reach. No longer bound to expensive cities or rigid schedules, they can prioritize well-being, culture, and adventure without sacrificing financial security. Parents see the chance to provide their children with not just stability, but experiences, new languages, diverse cultures, and global perspectives. For many, this is more than a career shift. It is the key to creating a lifestyle that reflects their values. Families realize they don't have to wait for retirement to live their dreams. They can do it now, supported by technology. Remote work has become a powerful tool of liberation, encouraging more and more UK families to turn those dreams into reality abroad. Number 10. Mental health epidemic. The UK is in the midst of a growing mental health epidemic that cuts across every age group and community. Rising levels of anxiety, depression, and stress are leaving millions of people struggling in silence. For young people, the pressures of exams, social media, and uncertain futures are creating unprecedented levels of distress. For adults, the cost of living, job insecurity, and family responsibilities compound daily pressures. Older generations face loneliness and declining health without adequate support. This collective struggle has turned mental health from a private issue into a national crisis, one that can no longer be ignored. The NHS is overwhelmed by the demand for psychological support, with waiting lists stretching into months or even years. People seeking therapy or counseling often find themselves without timely access, forcing many to rely on overstretched charities or expensive private services. Workplace burnout is on the rise, with employees feeling the constant strain of meeting expectations under increasingly difficult conditions. At the same time, stigma still surrounds mental health in many communities, discouraging people from speaking out or seeking help. This combination of rising demand, limited services, and cultural barriers is creating a dangerous storm. The wider consequences of the mental health epidemic are profound. Struggling individuals are more vulnerable to addiction, unemployment, and even homelessness, while families experience emotional and financial strain as they attempt to cope. Schools see declining performance and attendance when students are not supported, while businesses lose billions each year due to lost productivity. Beyond economics, this crisis affects the very fabric of society. When people feel unsupported and disconnected, trust and social cohesion weaken. The UK cannot afford to overlook this hidden burden, which erodes resilience at every level. Without stronger investment in services, public awareness, and community-based solutions, the epidemic will only deepen. Mental health is not a luxury, it is a foundation of a stable, functioning society. Its growing fragility signals yet another powerful reason why the UK today is standing on the edge of a breaking point. The 10 challenges we've explored: economic instability, housing struggles, NHS pressures, immigration, energy dependence, political division, rising crime, education failures, food insecurity, and mental health, are not isolated problems. They are deeply interconnected, each one feeding into the other, creating a cycle of stress and instability across the nation. When families cannot afford food, their health suffers. When schools underperform, young people lose opportunities. When crime rises, communities fracture. And when the NHS struggles, everyone feels the impact. Together, these forces form a picture of a nation under immense strain. But here's the critical truth. The UK is not powerless. Awareness is the first step, because silence allows crises to deepen. By recognizing how these problems shape daily life, whether it's the cost of groceries, the rent you pay, or the care you receive, we begin to understand the urgency of change. It's not just about politics or statistics, it's about people. Millions are already living the consequences, and unless action is taken, the pressure will only intensify. The UK's breaking point is not a distant fear, it's a reality unfolding right now. Yet within every crisis lies the potential for renewal. By confronting these challenges openly, demanding accountability and supporting solutions, there is hope for building a stronger, fairer, and more resilient society. The question that remains is whether leaders and citizens are willing to face these truths head-on, or whether the cracks will widen into something far more dangerous. Share your experience in the comments. I truly want to hear your perspective, and if you haven't yet, Watch our previous video for deeper insight into what's shaping the UK today. We put countless hours into creating content like this, so please support us by hitting that subscribe button. It only takes one click, but it means the world to us.